Sin, you go ahead and you kill Doll immediately. Like, seriously, what the... Okay, when people usually talk about murder drones and they're pointing out the main villain, it's Sin. But the more you look at Sin's story, the more it stops feeling like she truly is the villain, and she kind of feels like the victim. The first victim of the story. Because if you go back through the series and you look for the clues, Sin wasn't some mastermind that planned everything. She was a broken drone that got infected with something that eventually corrupted her and turned her into a killing machine, a monster, a villain. But we have to talk about who was Sin before she got infected with the Absolute Solver. Before everything went completely wrong, Sin was just an ordinary worker drone. She was a drone created to help serve humanity. But unfortunately, Sin was different. She unfortunately worked with the Elliot family, who was notoriously abused their worker drones. Mistreating them, destroying them, improperly disposing them, just generally being pieces of shit when it comes to treating their worker drones. And she was basically thrown away. We don't know why she was thrown away, but imagine having employers who were like that. They just throw away you for some random reason. You're gonna hate them. Now normally, her being thrown away or improperly disposed of, she would just shut down permanently. But there's like a little bit of a less than a 1% chance that you can turn into a zombie drone. She got turned into a zombie drone, just like N, V, and J, where they were able to reboot, and they were saved by Tessa. But for Sin, she had another thing that was less than the percent. I think it was even less than 0.1%. She got infected with the Absolute Solver. And boy, we do not know how long Sin was trapped behind all of those improperly disposed worker drones, smelling all the oil in the air, probably not having that much ability to see or move, until Tessa was one day able to save her. And I think this created a resolve in Sin. Sin wasn't going to be the old Sin. She was infected with the Solver and kind of merged with it. She became one with the Solver, which I'll get to more later. The Solver never truly started with Uzi, it started with Sin. Sin was the first victim of the Solver. And we see the Solver eventually spread throughout her. Now this caused Sin, because the Solver was a new, AI operating system I was trying to learn, it created Sin having a little limp. Her movements weren't supernatural, her voice glitched. She sometimes talked like herself, and she also sometimes talked like someone else was speaking, because the Solver and her were split personalities within her. But we clearly see that Sin had not forgotten about what the Elliots had done to her. So, she decides to return the favor back to the Elliots by killing all of them. She organizes the Gala massacre, and during that massacre she turns into a gigantic eldritch monster after Tessa tries to save the day, which, if you want to understand, she warned Tessa not to show up, because if Tessa showed up she was going to see something really ugly, and she did. Her entire family got massacred, plus all of their neighbors and closest friends. And Sin and the Solver did one little thing that kind of doesn't make them redeemable. They decide, hey, let's use Tessa as a bodysuit. So they did. And we clearly see that Sin is also in control, but she has become infected with the Solver. The Solver and Sin are no longer two separate entities. They eventually merged into one and became one whole entity. Now you're probably all wondering, hey, what are some powers that Sin probably gained from the Solver? Well, we saw these in the Gala massacre. She had the ability to manipulate reality. That was one of her abilities. And she also had the ability of regeneration, but not like true regeneration, more like her core can remain intact, and she can always find a new host. But there is a small thing that I'm going to talk about. Another ability the Solver has is the Null Void. Now we don't know exactly what the Null Void is, But basically, if I had to describe it, it's a gigantic black hole that can destroy a core of an entire planet, wiping out an entire planet, plus destroying it in the process. She does that to Earth with the other disassembly drones, which she turned N, V, and J into disassembly drones. But because Sin actually liked their personalities, she allowed those three to retain their personalities. But for N in particular, because she wanted to keep N naive and innocent, she wiped out all of N's memories of the Gala massacre. Now let's move on to episode 6, where we see Sin finally arrive. Well, she arrived a bit earlier, but in episode 6 we see her play as Tessa, and she's a flawless actor at this. But you're probably wondering, wait, why is Sin on Copper 9 if her goal was to destroy humanity? Well, you see, humanity, in a last-ditch attempt to try to stop the Absolute Solver, had decided, hey, let's go infect 2 worker drones. Well, they tried to infect multiple, but 2 successful worker drones were infected with the Absolute Solver, and they managed to create a patch. Now, Yiva willingly took her patch. Nori, on the other hand, was less willing to, and eventually got taken over by Sin. They had a little bit of a fight, and in Copper 9, a null void was released, but it wasn't a big null void, and it only wiped out humanity while keeping the worker drones alive. So the new mission is kill every single worker drone to ensure that no one can be better than Sin. So we go through episode 7 where N has to change and kills Tessa in order to save Uzi. And well, Sin did not like that, revealing herself to N and Uzi. We then go to episode 8 where she's chasing both of them down, almost eats N's core where she's slowly doing the meticulous villain thing of trying to eat it, and eventually N's plot armor kicks in and gets saved. Same thing with Uzi. Honestly, it's pretty hilarious how Sin fights and everything. She fights like everything's a joke because she knows she's far more powerful than anyone. If she wanted to end the final battle, she could have ended the final battle in 1 second, but unfortunately she doesn't. Eventually she gets defeated by Uzi Dorman herself, and she's forever trapped in Uzi's tail. So you're probably wondering, well, how is this a tragic story? Well, it's pretty simple. She unfortunately had the tragedy which was working for the Elliot family, which caused her to become this monster. She was never truly going to be this villain. If we had known the Sin beforehand, she would never have been a villain. She probably would have been nicer. But because the Solver was able to influence her and take parts of control of her, and she eventually merged with the Solver, she became the villain. And unlike other villains who, in the end, are able to just die in peace or just, they're gone. They don't have to have any more suffering. Sin, unfortunately, has to deal with the fact that she is now forever stuck in Uzi's tail with no ability to get out, unless if we get a merger in Season 2. And that's where Sin's story ends, and it makes her a tragedy in a weird way, where it's unlike normal tragedies, where, you know, it's truly tragic. This one's more of a comedic tragedy, where it's like, yeah, she has no power remaining, she's kind of just stuck there, just existing, with nothing really to do. But this tragedy is one of the reasons that makes Sin truly an amazing villain. But yeah, I want to thank you all for watching this video. Remember, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Hey, is Sin truly a tragedy, or do you think there's some other character that's more of a tragedy than Sin? I would like to hear your responses. If I said anything wrong, please correct me. I love to hear if I'm to get myself corrected on some things. But yeah, I'm recently testing out a new mic, so if you want to give me any feedback on this new mic, please give me some feedback. That's all I have for you today. And Uzi aren't able to do their normal outros. I'm just going to say some words. Sin being a tragedy makes her an amazing villain. Panzer out.